Good morning, outlets! Welcome to Shameless Plugs Podcast.
Morning, everyone.
It is morning, it is early, it is dark, and it was supposed to snow today, and I am slightly depressed that there's no snow on the ground.
It's still supposed to snow today, it just hasn't hit yet.
It was supposed to, supposed to be covered in snow. Covered. Buried.
We were supposed to be buried in a whole 3 inches.
And I was really excited about those 3 inches, but if you look outside, there is no snow.
No snow. None.
And this has been Cincinnati Weather with Shameless Plugs Podcast.
Yes. So for those of you who are not in Cincinnati and don't care about our weather forecasts at all, if you listened to our last episode, you know that we are neck deep in a now 3-part,
Yes, we are.
originally intended to be 2-part character building series of episodes, now 3-part. This is episode 2 of 3. If you listened to us last time, though, you know that we talked about who our favorite characters are. And we asked you to please think about who your favorite characters are so that you could have them in mind throughout this episode. So if you haven't thought of a character yet, we'll give you a second. We'll pause.
Yeah.
Snow.
I know.
Yeah.
It's March.
Yeah, it is March. Got those characters yet?
Steven keeps telling me I need to get over this snow thing.
Uh-huh.
Because it's March, and it's officially spring.
Yeah, but it's almost April. We're still expecting to get snow. Okay, so
Yeah,
I'm sure you got those characters
you
now.
You probably have them now?
So, to recap, my favorite character, Spider-Man, and I actually want to revise that. Just tweak it. Just tweak.
Okay.
I'm not changing characters.
All right.
But
I'll allow it.
Spider-Man is not my favorite character. Peter Parker is my favorite character, and that's a very important distinction that I'm very irritated I did not make in our last episode. Because there have been other people who have gone by the name Spider-Man. They aren't Peter Parker. I don't love them like I do Peter Parker Spider-Man. So, Peter Parker is my favorite.
Yeah, and my favorite is Sherlock Holmes. If you remember in the last episode, I said I had 2, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. House, but in research this week, we have discovered that Dr. House is kind of a foil of Sherlock Holmes, so I'm going to narrow my focus.
He's very heavily based on Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, so, 1, I'm brilliant for making that connection.
Uh-huh.
And 2, I'm going to narrow my focus down to just the one character.
So, Sherlock?
Yeah, that one.
Okay. So.
So, I guess kind of what we're going to do in this second episode of 3 is we're going to kind of focus on what I'm calling the video game logic to building a character, which is where do you start if you play video games? Our video game friends.
Yes.
You start
We're
with
gamers.
how they look.
Yes.
Woohoo! That is the first thing you do in a video game, and
if you get to make your own character, that's the first thing you do usually, is
Yeah.
you design their appearance.
exactly. So we are going to talk about appearance and kind of base personality traits and all that stuff that kind of goes into the outside, in quotation marks, of the character.
Since we're talking video game logic, I'm just going to do a mini tangent for
Yeah,
a second.
go for it. Uh-huh.
My favorite games are the ones where I get to make my character,
Oh, yeah.
especially when I get to do the appearance and I get to pick like their skills. Like those are that's why RPGs are my favorites, or one of my favorites, because I love making my character. I love it. And I love doing that in writing too, so it carries over. Okay. Tangent over.
I was going to say a word, but then it left my brain like as soon as I was about to say it, so that's where that air just came from.
Okay.
I need to drink more tea.
So,
I would also,
appearance.
I'm gonna tangent for just a second. I am drinking tea out of a Shakespearean insult mug right now.
Yes, you are.
And it makes me really happy.
Canker Blossom.
Canker Blossom, I know.
Yes.
My favorite one is I Do Desire We May Be Better Strangers.
That is a good one.
That's my
Yes.
favorite. Anyway, alright.
So, appearance.
What your character looks like.
Yes. So, there are some writing guides out there that will tell you, don't define your main character's appearance. Let them be something that the reader can project on so that they can imagine the character in their head, or they can project and picture themselves in that role. Sorry, that's garbage.
Garbage!
In my opinion, that is complete garbage. I I want to know what that character looks like, because I'm sorry, appearance does matter.
It does. It does. And it's not a shallow thing. It's a thing that can help you inform traits about your character.
Exactly.
So I think probably a good example that we have come up with is Ja and I both have terrible eyes. Terrible eyesight.
Yes, terrible.
Can't see
Yeah.
for anything without some kind of seeing aid. And J.A. wears glasses,
Yes.
and I wear contacts. And the reason that I choose to wear contacts is because I'm an active person, and I really don't want my glasses bouncing around on my face. It came a long time ago when I played soccer. I didn't want to play soccer with glasses, so I got contact lenses, and I've worn them ever since. My decision to wear contact lenses because of sports, athletic, moving around is really different from someone who chooses contact lenses because they want to look a certain way.
Yeah. A vanity character, a character choosing contact lenses over glasses because they don't want to be seen as the nerdy person or whatever. That is a very different character than the active person who wants contact lenses. I'm sorry, but appearance matters, and it ties into something else. It ties into personality.
Yeah.
It ties into building that character's personality. I mean, we are going to launch into a more detailed conversation about personality, because that might seem like a really basic thing that a character needs. A character needs a personality.
Yeah.
Well, duh.
Yeah.
But appearance can play a major role on that. If you've got two men in your novel, both of whom wear three-piece suits, one of them has the perfectly coiffed hair. It's, combed down and everything. It's slicked down with gel or whatever. And you got the other one who's got long, unruly hair. Those are two different characters making two different choices about their appearance. That matters.
And it tells you something.
Exactly what I was about to say.
It tells you something. I mean, if you think about, and to tie this back to our favorite characters, when you think about Sherlock Holmes, what do you think? He's got a long jacket on.
Yep.
He has a hat.
He's got the hat. Yep.
Why do you think that? And you know that those two things make him a detective.
Yeah.
So those choices inform things that you know about the character, and it's obviously not every piece of clothing your character puts on is going to be a statement maker.
Yes.
But it does say something small about them, and it says something, in your world. When you build your world, the clothes they wear, the logos they have, the choices they make mean something to you, and because they mean something to you, they mean something to your reader.
Peter Parker is an everyman. That is an important quality of his character. That is important in how he was built in the 60s. Peter Parker was created in the 60s, and he was supposed to be the young teenage character that the readers could identify with, that they could see their own struggles, the outcast, the nerd who wasn't welcomed. That was done for a reason, and he had to have a certain appearance in order for that to work. Appearance matters. Please, please, please define your character's appearance. You don't have to get into they have 37 freckles marching across the bridge of their nose, but let us know what they look like and choose to tell us the details. When it's organic, don't do an info dump. Please do not do an info dump of your character. And he stood 5'10", and he had sandy brown hair that was cut into... No, we don't want that. We want the relevant details that reveal something about that character at a time when it makes sense. If you're writing a romance novel, and it's important that, the female lead feels safe wrapped up in his muscular arms, that's when you drop those details in.
Yeah, and if you're doing a first person, please don't do the mirror dump.
No, God, no mirror dumps.
I stepped in front of the mirror and I saw mine. It's like, would you ever step in front of the mirror and say, I saw my eyes?
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't do that. That's
No.
just awkward.
Yeah.
So please don't do the mirror dump if you're doing a first person narrative.
No. It's okay to do a mirror if it's later on in the novel and you're highlighting something that's actually related to the scene, but please do not have that be how you describe your character.
Probably the first 2 pages, not a good place to do something like that.
No.
I don't think so.
Unless you're just completely doing it to mess with conventions
Yeah,
and you're doing
then,
something really cool
exactly.
and interesting.
Right.
But If you're doing it just to describe what your character looks like, please reconsider.
Yes.
Find another way.
Just reconsider, yeah.
Yes.
You know, there's something to be said for finessing the details.
Mm-hmm.
There's something to be said for, you know, if your character has a hat on and they take their hat off, well, that can ruffle their hair, which means they have longer hair.
Yes.
It's finesse the details.
Describe them in relation to things that they're noticing. Like, for example, in the first chapter of my current work in progress, I describe my character, but I don't do it all at once. I do things like he's looking at this woman who's kind of invaded what he sees as his personal space, like this diner that's kind of a safe haven for him. And he makes the note that it was only where the light hit her hair just right that he could tell it was potting soil brown and actually lighter than his own. It's working it in because he noticed something about her. It's something, it was relevant at that moment. It wasn't an info dump.
And you can also use the actions of your characters to imply things about the way they look. So, you know, kind of similarly in the first chapter of my work in progress, I mentioned that, you know, my character, he stands up and he stretches because he's been on a train all day. Well, being on a train all day implies what about his clothes?
Probably rumpled
and out of place.
Yes.
You know, so you can use little things like that, you know, rely on your readers to know something.
Yes. Yeah.
Believe that your readers are educated people and they can infer information.
And I would take that even a step further. Believe in your own ability to convey that without telling people everything.
Which I think kind of bridges into something else that we wanted to talk about, which is the active, not passive.
Yes. Do we want to do that? Because that was kind of our cliffhanger. Do we
want to do that?
I think we want to save that.
We want to save that?
Because it really ties into where we start part 3 of our series.
That's right. Yep. All right, so we're going to put that on hold for just a second.
You got a mini cliffhanger mid-episode.
Unplanned. That was a pantser moment.
That was a pantser moment.
Because pantsers are awesome.
Whereas I had it plotted out that we were going to end with that.
We can end with it.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm a pantser. I can go wherever.
Well, I'm going to stick to my outline. So
outline away.
I am a plotter. So.
Hey, plotter.
Yes?
Where would you like to go next?
Well, we kind of teed off, all kidding aside. We already kind of started talking about personality as we were talking about appearance.
Yeah.
This is going to sound so basic and stupid, what I am about to say, but I promise we are going to expand on it. Please, 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 please give your character a unique personality. Please, please do not have them be a boring blank cipher that just reacts to everything around them. Do you react the same way to bad news from your boss that you do from your mom or your best friend? No. People react in different ways, and they react based on the experiences they've had in their life.
Absolutely.
You know, Peter Parker, he jokes the whole time he's fighting. He has a motor mouth the whole time he's fighting. That is him dealing with his fear. The way that he deals with his fear when he's in these life and death situations is he makes jokes about it. He tries to rattle the opponent so that they're off their game. That is a unique personality trait of his. Make your character have a unique outlook that in different situations and interactions with other characters in the novel, not every one of your characters should react the same way. They should all have a unique personality. And this very much ties into something that we're going to talk about in our next episode, but it's based on the experiences that they've had over their life. It can be, if you fully believe that things are based on nature, not nurtured, then run with that. But have a personality.
There's an authenticity to that because there's a quote, and I should have looked it up and I didn't because again, pantser.
Yes.
But there's a quote that says that writers have to create fiction that's more realistic than real life. And it's true. So if you think about real life, J. George and Samantha the writer are not going to approach a situation the same way.
No.
And we're not going to react to it the same way. You know, if I get excited from something my mom says, it feels different than if I get excited from something my husband says.
Yes.
And that's the nature of life. So if you think about, the authenticity of people and the way that your best friend tells you a story versus the way that your grandmother tells you a story. There's a natural difference in that, and that should translate to the characters in your story. It should. It should. It has to.
Yeah, and I think that you hit on something there, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit already. But why do you react differently from something that your mom said versus something that your husband said? Because you have a different relationship with those people. Because you have different history with those people. You know, this could tie to appearance. This could tie to everything. You could have a character who has. I'm going to go back to kind of the analogy I made earlier. The guy in the three-piece suit with the wild, unruly hair. Maybe he does that because it's a rebellion against his mom, and the fact that his mom always made him go get a haircut every single Saturday or something like that, and now that he's in control, he's going to do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
That's a personality thing that's connected to history, that's connected to appearance. Meanwhile, his clothes are completely immaculate, his house is completely immaculate because maybe his mom was a hoarder. She wanted the outward appearance to be that everybody had to be neat and tidy and, you know, have perfectly clean clothes and everything, and she made him get a haircut every week. So now he's completely reacting to his mom by having a spick and span house but doing whatever he wants with his appearance. All of those things reflect his personality, reflected in his appearance, reflected because of his history. All of these things tie together, but please do not have your characters just be a cipher that reacts to the things around them and has no emotion, no whatever. You have to give them a personality and an outlook that is different than the character next to them.
Absolutely. When I was in college, I learned this lesson pretty thoroughly in a writing workshop I was in. I took a story to the workshop, and it was told by a man who was sitting in his apartment staring out the window, and it was just him observing the world around him. And one of the things he observed were these two people who were getting it on up against the light post, and he talked about it. But the thing that I learned in that workshop and what people said is they didn't care about the man in the house. All they cared about were the people up against the light post, and it was literally 4 sentences. That was it. Those were the people that they wanted to hear about because those people were interesting. They were active. They were doing things, and my main character wasn't. And so I think it's important to, if you write something like that, to realize that you've done it, and then to look and see what is actually interesting in the story itself and run with that. Because I wrote a whole nother story about those 2 people, and it went 10 times better than the other one. It was easier to write because my characters were doing stuff. It was easier to get into because my characters had personality and they had motive and they had all of these things that we'll address in the next episode.
Yeah. Yeah, we will.
Yeah, we will. But yeah, so it's okay to make that mistake, and it's okay to let yourself have a boring character so you realize what boring is.
Yes. But if you don't fall in love with your character, we're not going to either.
Nope.
I am not going to read 200, 300, 400, however many pages. I'm not going to read about somebody who does nothing, is bland, just reacts to everything around them, is just doesn't bring anything of themselves to their interactions, reacts the same way as the character next to them. I'm not going to read that character. I'm not going to read that book, because if you aren't defining the other characters, then the main character or the other characters, there's nothing for me to latch onto there. I don't care how great your plot is. You could write the best mystery that's ever been written. I'm not going to read it if the characters bore me.
And we don't get into grammar or words or very much of anything like that on this podcast, but please use active verbs.
Yes.
Please just say he walked across the room, not he thought about walking.
Don't you ever tell me that something sounded like or felt like it sounded like a car door slammed behind him. No, the car door slammed with enough force that he felt it in his boots. Give me something.
It's so important. It's like a very small thing, but it can really make your novel pop.
Yes.
And again, you might not get it right in your first draft, but good gravy, when you go back to edit, please look at things like that.
And I it is this is not judgment.
No.
Outlets, listeners, this is not us judging you. We have made these same mistakes. I still find them in my current work in progress.
I do too.
Yes.
I do too, and that's why I was doing some editing this morning, and I found one, and I'm like, come on.
It irritates me when I find them. It irritates me so much when I find them in my own work.
And sometimes you have to put stuff like that in just to get through a section.
Yes.
Like if you're cruising and you're just going and you get to the end and you're like, oh, that was really good, and then you look back and you've got a lot of to be's, was, that kind of stuff. That's the chance for you to go in and look at it again through a different lens. So anything like that, that's why you edit. That's why you have drafts 4, 5, and 6.
Yes.
So anyway, that was the word rant.
Yes. Word rant.
Word rant!
So, another thing that is kind of related to what we've been talking about, it kind of ties into some of the analogies that we've used. I talked about my 3-piece suit dude with his super neat house but his wild unruly hair. The idea of quirks, those little unique things about people's personality, the little details or the little actions that you can use to make them stand out. What I want to say about those is those can be very good things, but they can also really easily become a crutch. They have to be based on something. We talked about the guy who his unruly hair and his neat house were a reaction to his mom. That's how these things should be integrated. They should be based on something. It's fine to introduce a quirk out of nowhere without getting into all that detail. You shouldn't get into all that detail right away because then you're turning into an info dump. It's expository writing. But if you're going to build in quirks, they have to be consistent. They have to stick with the character. Consistency is another thing we're going to talk about a little bit, but they have to be consistent and stick with the character, and they have to be based on something. A tick for the sake of a tick is a crutch.
So, one of the things that you see a lot in novels is musicians. You see these musicians, and they have their instrument, and they play their instrument, and then it disappears.
Yeah.
Where did it go? If your character plays the guitar, then that guitar is part of your character. It is an extension of their body. It has to go with them if they go outside. It has to go with them if they go to the bar. It has to live in the house. It has to, that kind of quirk or trait can't just disappear.
It's got to, you can't just have things like that. They can't be a crutch that you use when they're convenient because you want to make this character seem cool or whatever. The person who is a professional musician and takes their guitar everywhere versus the guy who's just trying to pick it up and play. Those are two different characters and they have to be treated differently.
And if something, if all of a sudden you don't want the guitar in your novel anymore, then please get rid of it in a realistic way. Don't just write it out. Have it get smashed by a car or have him have to sell it because he wants to buy a ring for his girlfriend or something that makes sense in terms of your novel.
And it has to have believable consequences too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because if you're going to have a quirk, something that somebody does, or you're going to have a personality trait, something that is integral to who they are, there should be a reaction when they can't do that thing. And again, it should be based on their history and how that character was built. If all of a sudden my unruly hair guy gets all his hair chopped off, he gets stuck in a combine or whatever, and
good gravy, this poor guy.
I didn't say his scalp got ripped off. I said he lost a little hair. So he should have a reaction to that, and it should be based on his history.
Well, and with that, if your quirks are built naturally to your characters, then they're going to have repercussions outside of that. They're going to affect their appearance because your guitar guy is going to have calluses on his fingers.
Yes.
And that's something that he can see and talk about, and it can tell you about the extent of his playing. Or if he doesn't have those calluses, he's a novice.
Yeah.
It's little, it's how all of these things work together is really important.
Yes, and these are the things that, this series of episodes is about building great characters. You can make a perfectly functional character without going into this level of depth. I mean, side characters don't necessarily need to have this level of depth. This is for your important characters to take them to the next level, to make them more believable, make them people we want to live with, that we want to know better, that I'm about to say something, that we want to know all their secrets, but please don't tell us all their secrets.
Don't tell us all their secrets.
Please don't tell us all their secrets.
Not all of them.
99 out of 100 prequels, I absolutely hate. I hate prequels. Because the writer starts the story where they want to start the story. And I hate the idea that we feel like we have these interesting, mysterious characters. I'm sorry. I have no interest in seeing the Han Solo movie that comes out in May. None. He is a mysterious character, and that's part of the appeal. I don't want to know all of his history. Stop making mysterious characters that have secrets and intrigue and mystique about them, and then boiling all of it out by telling us everything about them. And the most convenient way people seem to do that is with a prequel. I hate prequels. I don't like the plot holes that they introduced. Yes, this is a rant. This is a tangent.
It's all good.
I don't like the plot holes that they introduce usually because they weren't written organically that way.
No.
So it's retroactive continuity, which I also hate. And they boil out the mystery and what makes characters interesting. So please make us want to know everything about these characters, but then don't tell us everything about these characters. Samantha and I have known each other for 3 years now.
Yeah.
I don't know everything about her. I don't want to know everything about her. I don't need to know everything about her.
Nope.
It's not true about the people in your life. Don't make it true about your characters.
Yep, agreed. And I think that's a really great analogy. I mean, even best friends, there are things that you're not going to tell that person.
Exactly.
Even though they are your best friend and they know 99% of everything, there are still little things that you're like, I'm going to hold on to that detail.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yes. So please do not tell us everything. But going back to quirks, your characters, and this speaks to kind of the analogy that Samantha was using with our guitar player, your characters need to have a consistency too.
Oh, yeah.
And quirks can be part of that consistency. And I don't mean that, your characters shouldn't be able to surprise us. They absolutely should be able to do things that surprise us.
Yeah.
But, and this goes back to characters having a history and a reason for why they do things, everything comes from somewhere. There needs to be an underlying reason why suit guy would all of a sudden wear hiking boots with his suit instead of, the wingtips or whatever, There needs to be a reason behind that. It needs to be something that we can buy into. It needs to be something believable. This is a horrible analogy, but I'm pantsing this right now. And
Go for it.
I'm not good at pantsing.
Nope,
so
go. You can do it.
Maybe hiking boots, three-piece suit guy, now he has to wear hiking boots because... Okay, I got nothing. I'm just going to give up on this one.
You're good. So, if your guitar guy has been playing at the same bar every Wednesday for the past 2 years, and all of a sudden he has to switch bars, did the bar burn down? Did it close? Did he have an argument with the owner? Is a girl that he used to be engaged to, but then they had to break up, does she go to that bar and he saw her and now he can't go back? Like, those things, those little things, if a decision is made, there has to be a reason for it to be made. And again, we don't want you to give up all of your character's secrets, but if he's playing his guitar and he sees this girl that he was engaged to, there has to be some kind of reaction to make the reader go, oh, there's something there. We don't have to know their history,
right?
But we have to know that there's something there, and that's kind of the consistency that we're trying to get at, and that's, building that character, giving them depth. Oh.
Preview of part 3.
But also making them relatable. Again, all of these things kind of just tie together in a big old knot.
Yeah, actually, I kind of already... I've already gave my analogy for quirk versus consistency. The unruly suit guy, or the suit guy with the unruly hair, all of it comes from his not great relationship with his mother.
Right.
So, yes, it may be surprising that three-piece suit guy would have the unruly hair but the super neat apartment, but it came from somewhere. It came from his relationship with his mom.
So therefore, if he meets his mom for lunch, the consistency then would be a strained conversation.
Yes.
Something again to reiterate the fact that there's something going on. Maybe she makes a comment about his hair and he says, well, you never let me do this when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Something to just kind of reinforce those little...
You don't get to make my decisions, Mom, whatever it is.
Yeah, something to reinforce the fact that they don't see eye to eye on this specific issue or this specific issue or...
And that hints that maybe on that specific issue and that one and that one and that one they also don't see eye to eye.
Yeah, it just kind of... and it doesn't have to be throwing the teacups at each other, but they're not going to sit down and reminisce about a baseball game they went to when he was 5.
No.
That's not something these characters are going to talk
Probably
about.
not, no. It's highly unlikely.
I just pantsed your character, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm
I saw
sorry.
that. It's fine. I never wrote this character. I made him up on the podcast, so, it's fine.
Just,
I pantsed my character, and oh my god, I never do that. So, as you could tell by me not being able to come up with an analogy because I hadn't plotted it, so...
I got it, don't worry.
Yeah. Thanks.
Anytime. I'm glad I could help.
Yeah.
Oh, got it!
What about that? It's cool.
I don't know. I kind of like my waiting music. It was like elevator music.
Yes.
It's like, what floor are we going to now? Anyway, yeah. So I am gonna tangent for just a second because this is something that in our design of this episode we talked about, and I was like, I feel strongly about this, and that's naming.
It relates to consistency.
It does.
It's a different kind of consistency,
it is,
but it relates.
Yeah. So I think that naming your character is important, but not just in giving them the right name, but in when you build your world, especially if you're building a world like in a sci-fi or a fantasy or a superhero.
Ooh, fantasy.
I know. I know.
The rant is coming.
I know. It's building. If you're building your world, then there has to be some consistency within the names themselves. Overall, you can have the best name for your main character, but if all of the supporting characters are kind of like, it takes away from the authenticity of your world.
Yes.
So and I think if you're writing a historical novel set in the 1920s, you're not going to spell Christine with a Y. That's modern. That's a name from today. You're going to have names with more traditional spellings.
Yes.
They're going to have an older feel to them. And you can do your research on that. Likewise, if you're setting something in the future, you can play with the spelling. You can play with the naming conventions as a whole. But it's very important to make sure your names match your world.
Yes. Agreed.
That was my rant about names.
It absolutely... I mean, that's very true. It has to match
You're
the
not
time
going to
period.
have an alien named John.
No, you aren't.
If he comes from another planet, he's going to have a different kind of name. And if you bring your alien to this world and they're like, hi, I'm Mary, you're going to be like, where are you from?
It's a caucus.
Anyway, sorry.
So I have a little name
just got
rant of my
excited.
own. Mine is a very different name rant. Okay, before I start into this rant,
Yeah.
understand that I am in no way criticizing the writers or readers of the genre that I am about to have a tirade on.
How about?
Because I am willing to suspend disbelief and buy into the idea that getting bitten by a radioactive spider gives you powers instead of cancer. I
Right,
am willing
yes.
to buy into the idea that a gamma bomb can turn you into a giant green rage monster.
Yes, that's very true.
I'm fine with those things.
Yep.
So, I am not judging anyone else because I know that a lot of people cannot suspend their
Yes.
disbelief. They have no interest in superheroes and comic books and all that kind of thing. That's fine. It's not your thing. It's not your thing. I can't read fantasy. I cannot do it. There is one fantasy series that I have ever been able to get through. I've already talked about it in previous episodes. My medieval forensics, by Tamara Seiler Jones, which I quite enjoyed. But for the most part, I cannot read fantasy. Part of the reason is the freaking names. I cannot read page after page of Boromir of Flathanagan of the hinterlands of the north. I can't do it. I'm sorry. I cannot do it. I get that those names fit what they are going for. They fit the feel that they're going for. They're Tolkien-esque and everything. I just can't read them. I can't sit through it. I can't watch Game of Thrones. I'm sorry. I can't do it. I cannot get past the names. I'm bringing this rant up for a reason. Understand that the names you choose will have an impact on the reader. It's fine to choose names that have meaning if the words mean something or if they have a certain connotation. You should be putting that level of thought into it for the characters that are important enough to invest that in. But please understand that the names you choose are going to have an impact on your reader. And in some cases, it's things outside your control. You can't help the fact that you named your main character Sean, and a certain reader in Illinois, their ex-husband was named Sean, and they can't even look at that name without, becoming violently ill. But you can't control those things. But there are aspects of naming that you can control. Just understand that the names you choose will have an impact on your reader.
Absolutely.
That includes the sound of them. That includes, the length of them. That includes whether you use hard consonants versus softer sounds. There's a lot of thought.
Your character has a nickname. Can your name be? Are they Alexander or are they Alex?
Yes.
Those are two very different names, which harkens back to personality, history, quirks.
It's a big old character knot.
Yep,
That's
exactly.
What this is.
It is a big knot of naughtiness.
Here's... Actually, I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that comment till the end.
Okay.
I'm going to save that comment till the end. It's a nice lead-in to the next episode.
But I feel like we're close to the end.
We are close to the end. We have one last thing that we want to talk about.
We do.
Your characters need to have agency. And what we mean by that... They cannot just react to everything around them. They have to actively be working to change their situation. Please, 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 please. The same way I said, please, 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 please describe your characters. Please, and give them a personality. Please, 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 please make your characters active.
Yeah, do that.
I am not going to read 300 pages of the character who just floats down the river like a leaf. I'm not going to do it. I want them to, if something goes wrong, they have to be working to fix it. Maybe it takes effort to get them there. Maybe they are somebody who's scared of taking action, but you're still taking us on that character's journey, and then it's more rewarding when they do take it. But you have to have them working to better their situation.
And with that, if your character starts out at the beginning of your novel and they're scared of, riding a boat, then by the end of the novel, they either need to be captain of the boat or they need to be so scared of it they move 500 miles from any ocean. There has to be change. There has to be... And whatever direction you want to take it, not everyone is going to conquer their fears, but if your character isn't going to conquer their fears, then they have to give in to them.
Yeah. It has to be important. It has to be something that's built in. What's the... I can't remember if this is... Tolstoy or Dostoevsky. I might even... It's a Russian author. I might be off on who the author was. But if you have the rifle hanging on the wall, it better come back into the story later.
Yes.
Don't bring things like... This goes back to quirks. Don't bring up things like that if they aren't going to play a role. And your characters have to be working against those things.
I like what you just brought up because there's a part of playwriting, and I'm going to tangent this, but it's all going to tie back in, where when you write a play, all you have control over is the dialogue. So if you want your characters to interact with something, you either have to write it into the dialogue or make it such a big part of the play that the director can't avoid it. Because just because you say that there are socks on the floor doesn't mean the director has to put socks on the floor of the stage. If you want your if you want your scene to have socks on the floor, then your character needs to slip on it, pick it up and fold it, make a comment about the holes in it, something to get them to interact with it. And I think that is the way that I've always thought about novel writing as well. If I'm going to put something in my chapter, then I need to put it there with purpose. I need it to be used. I need it to be active. I need them to talk about it. I need them to interact with it.
Yes. But the character who sits there, if Spider-Man sat there when Dr. Octopus robbed the bank, Dr. Octopus, by the way, is Spider-Man's best villain. I'll fight anybody who disagrees with me about that. But Dr. Octopus is robbing the bank. Before anybody gets mad at me, Spider-Man's whole rogue gallery is amazing. I would say they are the best rogues gallery in all of comics, but Dr. Octopus is the best. So, Dr. Octopus robs the bank. Spider-Man is not going to sit there and just wait for the cops to deal with it. He's going to take action. He's going to do something about it. If somebody threatens Aunt May, Peter Parker is going into action and somebody's getting a web ball in the face, okay?
Yeah.
It's happening. What is Sherlock Holmes going to do if there's a murder on Baker Street?
He's gonna go get in the middle of that.
Yeah.
He's gonna run out there and get in the middle of that, or he's gonna send Watson out there to get in the middle of it. But either way,
he's not gonna sit there and wait for Scotland Yard.
Nope. He can't. That's not his personality.
Exactly.
He's got to be in the middle of things.
Do not give me a passive character who sits and just waits for things to happen and reacts to what's going on around them.
Waiting for the bus.
Yeah, that's a boring character. To the story you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
The person who just sat and watched the world around them, the readers were not interested in that guy. They were interested in the people who were doing something.
Yep.
Passive is boring. People do not want to spend a novel with your passive, reactive character who doesn't take action. It's fine if that's a side character. It's fine if that's a minor character or a character who only shows up in one scene. We're talking main characters here. We're talking taking your important characters from good to great.
Because they're already good. Because you wrote them.
Yeah.
Now you just gotta make them better.
We trust that you've got skills.
Yeah. Right.
We trust your talent.
Right.
You need to trust your talent.
Whoa.
We hope you do. I'm pointing at the microphone right now, so...
Yes, there was a point involved in that one.
Yes. I'm bringing that up because I think that's an important point.
I agree.
Writers tear ourselves down all the time. Yes. Yes. She was pointing at the mic now. Writers tear ourselves down all the time.
Yeah.
It's kind of the nature of the beast. It's nerve-wracking to put yourself out there. Have faith in your abilities. You do this because you love it, and if you love something, you put the time and the energy in, and you get better at it. Please, please, please have faith in your abilities. I mean, we joke on this show all the time that we're the two greatest hit writers in the history of the known universe. Because it's true.
Yes,
but
it's not just a joke.
No, it's not entirely a joke. I mean, but all seriousness, all kidding aside, one of the things that we want this program to do is to help our fellow writers out there. So it's important to me to remind people that you are doing this for a reason because you love it. And if you work at something you love at, maybe you're not at the level you want to be now. You will get better. You have more talent than you think you do. Right now, you have more talent than you think you do.
Agreed.
Yeah. So
I got nothing. Like you said exactly what we talk about. It's like, and you know what's nice is since we're both writers, we can kind of pump each other up with that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Like, hey, you had a bad session? That's okay. It'll get better.
Yeah.
Just keep working on it, you know. And if you don't have that kind of support, sometimes it can be easy to doubt yourself. But just listen to this episode because you got the support.
Yes.
You can do it.
And if you want to get better, don't write passive characters. I'm going to bring it back to the message. If you want to get better, write active characters, not passive ones.
With clapping.
Yes. I'm fired up about this topic,
Yes, I know you are. I'm fired up because there's still no snow outside.
Still no snow. But, you know what there is?
What?
There's another character building episode coming.
Yay!
So where do actions come from? Where does that activity in your character, rather than having a passive character, come from? Comes from motivation.
What?
What do they want? What do they really not want?
What is this sorcery you speak of?
The sorcery I speak of is where we're going to end this episode.
No!
And if you want to find out about motivations and fears, you'll join us for part 2 of the Shameless Plugs first ever 2-part series.
3-part
series, excuse me, yes. There was a prelude plus 2 content episodes.
We prologued this
Yes.
thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, I almost...
I know you did. I could tell. On the episode, if you listen to our last episode, you know that this episode is an episode that will not be.
Yes.
The episode that will not be, I cursed for the first time
He
ever on the
did,
air.
I know. So, it was impressive.
Yeah. Anyway, so what this all comes back to is everything is connected. This is the thought that I wanted to leave you with in this episode. You are building big old character knots. Now come back and listen to our next episode. Next episode, we are going to start launching into motivation and fear. That's where we're going to pick up. So thank you, everyone, for listening today. We hope you will join us for the second half. And outlets, take care. We love you. And bye-bye.
Outlets.